A month ago, I was interviewed by Jody Cook at Forbes about how to always be your best self. So today I'm gonna go over a few things that we talked about during that interview. Number one, be a lifelong learner. Create a habit of making time for learning. And it seems like for some reason, I used to think this way, that after college or after school, we're done with learning. We're gonna get a job and that's it. That is completely false. You wanna read books, watch courses, adopt a growth mindset for improving. And a way to start this is just by looking at what you already know and then bolting on new knowledge and skills, like a web designer who learns how to code. Start reading for fun, not because you have to, or that you're trying to get a certificate, but just follow those curiosities that you have. That's how I got started on this journey. I used to be an architect and now I run Best Self. So anyone can change their journey just by starting to learn something new. I would much rather hire someone who has learned how to do something specific versus has a degree about the theory of how to do that specific thing. Because we all know that when you actually do it in real life, it is completely different than reading about it in a book. Number two, become a morning person. Hear me out. If you're an evening person, hear me out. I always thought of myself as a night person, not a morning person. And then I read a book that explained that it's nothing but a label that can be changed. Assigning these arbitrary descriptions are actually damaging because humans act consistently with their self-identity. So if you're one of those people who say, oh, I'm a night person, start relabeling yourself, oh, I'm a morning person now. I read this book, The Miracle Morning, and that completely changed how I saw myself and how I changed where I start my day at. Creating identity labels are much stronger for motivation than just saying, oh, I'm gonna get up early. Because now you're creating a whole identity around it. I am a morning person is going to get you up in the morning, gonna get you started on your day. And if you keep saying to yourself, oh, I'm a night person, then you will stay a night person. It's kind of like if you want to get fit and look better and eat healthier, you might say, oh, I'm an athlete. Because what does an athlete do? They look after their health, they eat well. And so you make this your new identity. Well, you can make being a morning person your identity. Number three, control your circle. So back when I was an architect, I would only hang around other architects. And if you want to do something different in your life, but you're only hanging around the people who are doing the same thing as you, then you're much less likely to do that. Same way, years later, I would only hang around entrepreneurs and I didn't always really want to be talking about work. So hang out with different friends who know different versions of you, and that will make you a well-rounded person. We've all heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So start spending time with more people that inspire you to do something different. Even if it's uncomfortable at the start, even if you're going to meetups where you don't know anyone, that's where I started, but you have to start somewhere. Now, since moving from New York to Austin, there is a completely different mindset here of community versus in New York, it's very busy, catch-up mode. And so I've really loved how Austin has changed how I look at this idea of networking. So if you want to know more about that, check out my video about specific reasons why I love living in Austin, and one of them is specifically around community. In the same realm of you are the average of the 5 people, you're also, if you're in a relationship, hang out with other couples that you enjoy hanging out with and have a good relationship, because you're much more likely to be in a better relationship if you hang out with healthy couples. If you hang out with couples that are dramatic and toxic for each other and get into arguments publicly and all that stuff, guess what happens? That will rub off on you. So make sure not only in the friend sense, but each part of your life, you are choosing who you show up with and the relationships that you want to cultivate. Number 4, understand your core values. Now, one core value that I realized that I have is curiosity. And so how that shows up, even in times of stress, was last year in 2020 during the pandemic. As it was hitting and all this stuff's going on, I have these business partner issues, I have this embezzlement happening, I have a pandemic about to start, and instead of completely stressing out and fearing it, in the first part of my mind, instead of my mind going to negative, my first question was, oh, this is my first pandemic, I wonder what this is going to be like. And so that's how I realized curiosity is actually a core value, because even if I don't know about it, I'm curious, okay, how's this gonna go? And by knowing that, I make better decisions. Number 5, put progress over perfection. So the first video I ever made for the internet was awful. It was me talking to the camera, and I just was the worst. I can't even go into how bad I was. Even my brother was I couldn't even watch it, it was so bad. So terrible. And so people expect themselves to be good at things right away, but when they're not perfect, it stops them from progressing. If I had have stopped, doing videos or talking publicly, which I felt like at that moment, then I never would have given myself a chance to get better. So looking back and not being embarrassed by your first piece of content might mean that you have never improved. So what's that thing for you? What's that thing that you want to be better at, but you're not yet? You have to give yourself the courage to be embarrassed for a while until you get better. And it's the people that have this courage, that have this ability to just screw up and not be very good until they get better. And then what happens is people will go up to them and say, oh, you're so good at this, how did you get so good? And it's because they had the courage to be bad for a while first. 6, get away from technology. So getting away from your computer and your phone is a really good thing for your brand. Not right now though, because now it is important you finish this video and actually like and subscribe, and then I'll tell you more things that are good for your brand. So these days, because we are constantly bombarded with devices and people trying to get our attention, we don't give our brand time to be bored and come up with ideas, and it costs us productivity and it costs us ideas. It's no surprise that we get our best ideas in the shower. It's because we are in this meditative state. We are not having to think or use our brain to use the shower. We can't have our devices in there. And so our mind comes up with ideas because it has time to think and wonder without distraction. And if you can create a habit of doing that on a more regular basis, you will come up with more ideas. So this could be just like taking a 20-minute walk. Don't bring your headphones or your phone, just like take a walk and see what comes up. And when I started doing this, my first thought was I'm walking back home when I have a car somewhere, and my first thought was like, oh, this is not productive. I should be doing, listen to a podcast, or, your brain is basically looking for ways not to be bored because it keeps it at bay. You want to make sure that you're setting time aside for this, even at the start when you do it. If every single thing in your brain is saying, this is dumb, I need to be productive, you don't need to be productive. You just need to give your brain time to think. Now, if you're watching this, you know that there's a spectrum. You know the guy with the double rainbow all the way, always in his head, never doing anything. Don't do that. But also, if you're trying to optimize every single part of your day, you're not actually living. So you need to be somewhere in the middle. A good book on that, if you're looking for it, is called Rest. So that's it. The best version of every single person out there shows up in many different ways. And the easy part is figuring out what the best part of you is by figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. And this is why I created Best Self. I wanted to create tools that make it easier for you to show up as your best self every day. Not just in productivity, yes, we want you to hit your goals, but in your relationships, in your friendship, with your kids, with your own ideas, like how do we make you the best version of yourself? The only person that you are competing with is yourself, the past self, how you're improving over time, and I cannot wait to see how you improve next. Thanks for watching.